What's going on? This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave, the founder of the highest paid part-time job in the world options trading program. And what we're going to talk about with this particular kind of like impromptu laws of game, this is a kind of trending story, and I want to kind of build out on it. And this is something that, most of these mainstream people are never really going to talk about and never really going to approach, is the Game of Thrones SouthLake, Texas style, and why you'll never be taught how to build effective power, right? And so what I really want to show you is this kind of the parallels between Southwest Texas and normally what may be going on in your particular local area and what you have not been taught by the people that are appealing to you on a political level, whether it be liberal or conservative, right? Either of these particular political parties and people in these political perspectives have actually taught you how to build power in this way. And there's going to be a lot of reasons why we're going to go into it. So what I want people to do real quick is I'm going to give you a heads up. This particular course, this particular broadcast is being brought to you by the highest paid online. And so for this particular course, it's for the people that are dissatisfied with the money coming in through their 9 to 5. They don't like the fact that they got to steal time away from their family. They don't like the fact that there's a cap on their income. What we've been able to do is teach people how to successfully trade the options markets to generate income that solves those particular problems. But to be a good candidate for what we're teaching, you got to really want to learn. You got to want to apply yourself. You got to want to do some due diligence. And you should not be expecting an overnight result. Our goal and what we've been successful at doing is producing traders, and it's a process. It's not an overnight thing. And so if you're ready to transform your life and transform who you are into somebody that can actually get the results that you want to get out of life, you need to reach out to the www.highestpaid.online. And if you look at the price points and you feel like, you know what, I can't afford to pay these price points, that should really get you to start examining your life. Because from the people that are doing options courses in this particular space that have results, we're still on the lower tier from a price point standpoint, right? People have reached out to me, told me you should be charging $5,000 and up for what you provide to the community. I told them we're going to get there, but it's going to be a process. So today will be the lowest price that it's going to be. It's going to keep going up. So that's the particular sponsorship. Let's go ahead and get back to the particular content. So what I want to talk about is this particular issue, right? And everybody that commented, I really appreciate it. We're also going to ask some particular questions. So I posted the actual transcript, right? Because one of the things that we do at the highest paid part-time job in the world, but also with the IPO course, but also with the VIP course, is we read. So what I'm not a fan of is somebody presenting information to you that you have not read on your own. So there is the PDF. It's pinned. It's coming from a particular website. I don't believe that there's any kind of spamming, but if you download it, you may want to do some type of virus scan on it. But you can actually read the transcript that we're going to be talking about here. So it's not a scenario where you're just getting this from me and then you got to believe what I say about it. I'm going to give you the documentation. Then you can read through the documentation yourself and come up to your own conclusion. So your conclusion don't have to be my conclusion, but you have to be willing to do the reading. But one of the things that we're trying to build is a community of people that's not scared to sit down and read and actually, study and look through documentation and kind of understand the information that's being presented. So here's a scenario, right? What was going on in Southlake, Texas. Southlake, Texas is a suburb that's southwest of Dallas, right? And you had this particular scenario to where there were some what they identified or defined as racial incidents on social media. And these particular students were coming from or are members of the Southlake area. They went to something I think called Carroll ISD, which is the high school in that area. I found that high school has like almost 10,000 members. I've never been to a high school that big. And there was a response to it from parents and students who had kind of explained that they've experienced this type of racial, I would say, harassment or racial inconsideration or racial how do you say that particular word? Insensitivity, something being opposite of being sensitive. Insensitivity, that's what I meant. And as a result, they formed a particular plan to create something that they called a competency or the diversity to try to figure out how can we help these particular students at this high school be more sensitive. Yeah, insensitivity. Okay. Appreciate it, Roscoe. How can we take these particular students to where they can be more sensitive to people of other ethnicities, other races, yada, 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 because a lot of people were kind of explaining that I've gone through this during my particular experience, not only in Southlake, but also at this particular high school. So that's the first piece of it. So if you're looking at the particular plan, that's what they came up with. So let's go into some more of the details, right? So I want to give you the socioeconomic status of Southlake. 3/4 of the residents are white. 15% of the residents classify as Asian. Around 2% classify as black. This particular area, the average home in that area was stated to be worth around $1 million, right? We stated to be worth around $1 million homes. And if you look at it like an aerial drone view of those homes are big. Like they're not big from the standpoint of like multiple stories high, but they're very spread out on a lot of land. So these are very, very big houses. They're very expensive houses. And even a small house in that area would be an expensive house everywhere else. So you're looking at a particular cluster outside of the Dallas metro area where they are a higher income. They're primarily white, very, very small black population. They identify as conservative. I think pretty much that whole particular area, pretty much all voted for Trump in the last election. And they were having issues to where students from that particular high school were coming on social media and making racial epithets, and then that was being broadcast all over the internet. And when the school board had a meeting based around that, a lot of parents and a lot of students that were currently going or have formerly gone was explaining that I've dealt with this before. So parents were saying my children have dealt with racial issues at the particular high school, and the students were talking about how they dealt with racial issues. Now, I want you to understand, when I was in high school, I went to a high school that was primarily, I want to say maybe 70% Anglo-American. It was in a quote unquote higher income part of the actual county that I was in. So I'm from the biggest city in the county, but I went to a high school initially in a smaller city in my county. And I dealt with a lot of racial issues. You know, when you're at a high school and you're a minority, and they got a 70% disparity, 70, 30, not even really 30, because it was other minority groups there. I dealt with a lot of racial situations, right? And it just, to me, was just par for the course. I was made to understand at a certain age that this is just how these people conduct themselves. You know, when they think they got the upper hand, when they think they got the advantage, this is how they conduct themselves. And a lot of times when you're a minority and you're not a power group in a particular area, the group that is in power, they socialize a lot of times themselves and also their children to be disrespectful of other people. And then so then what you're doing is you're searching for the small minority in that larger group that's not going to be disrespectful of you. But it's just on average, they say a lot of stuff that really is disrespectful, it's insensitive, it's not necessarily necessary. But to them, that's they just have a right to do that because their attitude is you're in our area. And so we can kind of do what we want to do, and there's not going to be any recourse of it. So I've seen these type of scenarios before, and to me, it's just par for the course. And one of the things that I think that we'll talk about black parents, I don't necessarily know if they prepare their children when you integrate in these type of areas. I know they might feel like I don't want my child to see everything as, you know, race-based or whatever. But the problem is that if you don't prepare them that this can be a potential or this can possibly happen, and it happens, they're taken by surprise because they don't understand why somebody's treating them like this, even though they have not done anything to this person. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? And a lot of times when you go to these particular type of schools, you're just trying to fit in. You're trying to find your space, and you're being sometimes made to feel like an outsider just because of the color of your skin, or maybe because of your sex, sometimes maybe because of your sexual orientation. And then a lot of times, if it's certain kids are doing it, they're the ones that are perpetrating it. The way the school is set up, they won't get in trouble for it. And I've seen this a lot when I was in high school. So a solution to my problem was that I left that school and I went to a primarily like a 99.9% black school. And I didn't have any issues at that school because my comfort level was a lot higher. I was very comfortable. I was around teachers and staff that I knew actually cared about me, and they wanted to see me be successful. They was invested in my success. And I had a much more pleasurable high school career when I did that than I was having originally. And I was at a school that was not as funded. It wasn't as new. It was considered to be in a bad part of town. I never had an issue over there, right? Because I was just very comfortable, and the people around me was comfortable with me just being me. Where at the other school, sometimes you would have an issue just being a kid. Kids do stupid stuff. But when a lot of times when you're a minority student at a primarily white school or Anglo-American school, if you just act like a child, you find yourself into a lot of trouble. And so these are some of the things I don't necessarily know if the parents are preparing their children for. So now what they did was, as a response to this, they formed something called the District Diversity Council. And the school board, which was that current school board at that time, wanted the council to create something that wasn't called a Cultural Competency Action Plan, which is what I linked in the PDF. It's going to be 63 parents, students, and staff to create this particular action plan. Now, when they presented this action plan, when it came out to the public, a lot of the families of SouthLake had a big issue with it, with the actual wording and the terminology of this particular plan. Now, I want to ask you a question. Why do you think, right, and I'm going to put this in the chat, why do you think they had an issue with the plan? Right? Because a lot of the parents had a lot of pushback on this cultural competency plan. So why do you think they had an issue with this plan? The plan was designed to deal with some of these issues at the school. But a lot of the parents had an issue with the plan, and they started using a lot of the language, and we're going to kind of talk about this in this particular broadcast, right? Why do you think they had such an issue with the plan? And I'm asking this to the particular audience. And the plan is in the actual okay, Jermaine Scott said power disruption. Okay. Because all of this started as a reaction to this plan. Okay, so Jermaine Scott say power disruption. Drop 16 TV says disrupting and changing their daily protocol. Melissa Alves says it makes white people look like the aggressor, the one in the wrong. Paula Clay says it because it puts them in a position of weakness. And then Michelle Green says, I know they had an issue because it goes against what they taught their children. Okay, those are all good answers. So they had a real big issue with the plan. Now, I read the plan last night. I thought the plan was a little too ambiguous, in my opinion. I thought it was too ambiguous. I could tell a lot of people worked on it. It's hard to come up with a plan with 63 people. If everybody wants to put their little input in the plan, it's hard. Unless you take it to an editor and you have the editor file it all down. But what we're going to look at is some of the basics of this particular plan. And I really would encourage you to look at the plan yourself. But I thought it was a little ambiguous in a lot of the things that they were saying. So let me see, can I find it? Okay, here we go right here. So here's the plan. Let me zoom in. Now let me get to this particular page. And I have it here. What page am I looking for? Looking for page 13. So let me go to, can I get to 13? Let me go to page 13. Because we officially got the breakdown. So we got the goals and objectives of the plan. So goal 1, promote cultural competence within Carroll ISD. So the objective 1.1 is define and understand culture, be able to assess one's own biases, stereotypes, and level of cultural competence, all right, based on the student-led education and policy. So strategy 1.1.1 is develop cultural competence to embrace diversity at CISD campuses and enable a culturally safe and respectful environment for students to practice inclusion. So the action steps, hire the directory of equity and inclusion, right? The owner and the budget is going to be the superintendent. It's going to be $125,000 annually. And the timeline and evaluation, September 20th, and it's going to be in progress. Action step 2, diversity and inclusion training for students as an enrollment to graduation. And one of the things they talked about in this plan, if you read it early on, is they wanted every year of the child being at this particular school to get diversity and inclusion training as a condition of graduation, right? Implemented diversity and inclusion curriculum initiatives in each grade for what different levels of age appropriate proficiency. Educate students about diversity, inclusion, student code of conduct, and expectations for appropriate behavior. I think action step 4 is the only one that's really decent. Conduct so now that's the particular. Now we got establish diversity and inclusion metrics driven student education policy. Conduct a survey. Reward and recognize students who demonstrate diversity and inclusion excellence. I think that's kind of, I don't know. I knew they wouldn't agree with that one. Establish a student focus, a task force. Establish inclusion and inclusion grievance process. So we got all the particular steps. Reading the steps, to me, was a little bit too ambitious, because what I think they should have done was say, you know what? We got a code of conduct. What they done does not fit into the code of conduct. So what we got to do is make sure that we're enforcing the code of conduct. And how do we get it to where the code of conduct is enforced across the board? But them coming up with this plan and using terms like microaggressions, and that's at the top of this particular plan, diversity, they use this term equity, and I'm going to talk about that, to where they've now made equity be a negative term without understanding what it means from an economic standpoint. And these people really don't understand what this stuff means. And what it really is it's changing the status quo. And they were very sensitive about their children getting implemented, or having this particular plan implemented into their particular child's curriculum, right? And when you start talking about cultural competency, their mentality is that culture is not skin-based. Their mentality is that culture is religion, is political. They don't want to admit that there's cultures based on ethnicity. They don't really want to admit that until it's negative on somebody else's part. But if it's negative on their part, they can't admit that. So when we start talking about cultural competency, they're going to be very resistant to that. So I think this plan was a little bit over the top for the audience that they were appealing to. But what I do like about it is that it gives you a place to start from. You can always scale it back. But see, they was never given that position to happen. So then the question I want to ask you is that once they drop this plan, what do you think happened next? So they create the plan, they present it. What do you think happened after they created this plan? Mary, you say you live in SouthLake. I wish I would have known that. I would have had you on the show. So what do you think happened to this plan after it was presented? Okay. Keep coming. What y'all think happened? Because this is the part that we not being taught. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Do you think they rioted? Do you think they rioted after the plan came out? After they read this plan, do you think they said, well, we're gonna riot? Right? Do you think they protested after the plan came out? Did they protest? They say we're gonna walk the streets with signs and we're gonna protest. Do you think they did a Twitter campaign where they got on Twitter and they found the people that created the plan and they canceled them on Twitter? You think they did that? Do you think they let me see the other thing they try to get us to do. Do you think they said that we're going to vote in a new president and the president is going to solve our problem because we're going to vote a new president? Think they did any of those things? So let's explain what happened based on my information. So a parent in SouthLake sued the school board for what they call communicating in a quorum outside of an official meeting. So what they mean by that is that the idea for this particular plan and to create this district diversity council, from my understanding, was created outside of the official school board meeting. So then the parents sued the school board because it says that you can't do that. What you got to do as a school board is you got to bring this plan up before us in the quorum, and we have to have the ability to give you feedback on whether or not we even want you to put this plan together, who we want to be on this particular board. Y'all can't do this in secret. So she sued the school board and a judge issued a restraining order which stopped the implementation of this particular plan. Now, the question I want to ask you is that what did it take to sue the school board? What did it take to sue the school board? And Miss Mary, it wasn't just minority parents, from my understanding, that was on the council. What did it take? What did it take to sue the school board? Right? Some of y'all getting this. What did it take to sue the school board? If you want to do a lawsuit, what does it take to take a suit to court? It take the will to do it first. You got to have the will. That's the most important part. You got to have the will to do it, but you got to have money. So everybody that put money is extremely wise. So this is why do I always talk about you got to make sure you got some money? Why? Because you don't never know what's going to happen. So this is why they didn't need another group to come in there to represent them on their behalf, because they're so financially destitute. They lack so much political capital. They lack because they already got that already established. So when something happened, we just start putting things in motion. Why? Because it's already been built out. So so this woman has enough money to not only handle her regular scenarios, she can now sue the school board. So really her family has enough money. See what I'm saying? So this is what I try to tell us is that us having this mentality that we don't have to have a certain level of financial ability is incorrect, because you don't never know when something's going to happen. So they didn't know this was going to happen. But once it happened, they was able to move forward. Why? Because I have the financial wherewithal to do so. This is why I try to keep getting people to understand money don't have to be your God. But when you don't have anything, you can't move around the way you need to move in a world where everything costs money. Right? Now, it does take networks. It takes relationships. But most lawyers not going to work for free. Somebody somewhere got to pay them. Right? Do some lawyers take pro bono? Yes. But you can't get things done waiting for somebody else to do something for you pro bono. So she sued it. So they recalled it. Now, what do you think happened next after they recalled it? Because they didn't like the fact that these members of this school board tried to go behind their back and put this particular plan together. And they started calling it Marxism. And we're going to kind of talk about them using this particular word. They started talking about all these particular things. You know, so they labeled this plan critical race theory. There's nowhere in this plan that I've read, I'm going to miss it because it's 34 pages, where they use the word critical race theory. So what do we think happened after? So what happened next? What happened after they got the plan, took it down? I want you to understand the timeline. See? So the first thing, notice they didn't run around in the streets. They didn't have some lawyer from a whole nother state come down there and do a press conference and talk about the plan. They utilized their financial wherewithal and their network to get this. And it was smart because it was actually correct. The school board couldn't do what they did. Right? They could not go behind the back of the actual parents and create this plan and then try to implement it without involving the parents and letting the parents know that they was going to do it. So what the school board did was they kind of messed up in their procedure. And that's really what happened. So what happened after they had the plan taken down? What do y'all think happened next? But notice what they didn't do. They didn't run around like they was crazy. They didn't jump on the internet. They probably have some people on the internet, but they didn't do an internet program and say, we're going to do internet activism. They didn't go riot, right? They understood this is how we stay in power. So we already in power. We perceive this as a threat to our power, because I'm going to talk about one of the most important things to this group of people is they continue to indoctrinate their children that everything is all right. Right? They can't, and we're going to talk about, they cannot admit that something was wrong in the past. So we got to continue to indoctrinate our children that everything is all right. So our children continue to perpetuate what we want to get perpetuated in the world. Because if our children ever think that what is going on is wrong, they won't keep doing it. So we got to make them believe that everything is all right. And that's the difference between America and a lot of other countries in the world. This country cannot admit that anything that happened in the past was incorrect. It's not their psychology. They have literally adopted this mindset is that everything we did in the past is correct. Why? because they got us where we at right now today. So it's an ends justifies a means mentality. I'm cool with that, but understand, everybody play that game, don't get mad. So you got to understand is that they saw this particular plan as being a threat against what they wanted to teach their children. So they said that indoctrination is not education. All education is indoctrination. Me constantly telling you that you need to get money, get money, get money, get money is indoctrination. I'm trying to get you to believe that. So how do I get you to believe that? I keep showing you examples in which you need to go have some money in your pocket. All education is indoctrination. Education is not, I just present data to you. That's not education. That's information. All education is indoctrination. An education system is designed to indoctrinate its people. Media is designed to indoctrinate you. The church is designed to indoctrinate you. What are you being indoctrinated to do? And so what you got to understand, so them saying that education is not indoctrination, it is indoctrination. And they want their children to be indoctrinated that everything that is going on is right and exact. And everybody else is wrong and we the only people that's right. Then we can justify what we're doing. We can never admit we wrong because then we can't justify our actions. You understand me? So anything that is a threat to that, we're going to do it. So then what they did after this is they said, you know what? These people on the school board that tried to do this, they got to go. Now, what have I talked about on this channel all the time? If you have a political representative and they don't do what you want them to do, your job is to remove them. That's your job. That guy in Kentucky that let those officers go for shooting that sister in her house and she didn't have a gun on her. Nobody has said we got to get this guy out of position. They moved on to the next scenario. These people don't think like that because they understand what is power. Power is you do what I want you to do or you suffer punishment. Power is you do what I want you to do or I punish you. I don't mean you go do something to the person personally, but your political position no longer exists. We're going to put somebody else that does what I want them to do. So power is you do what I want you to do, I reward you. If you don't do what I want you to do, you get punished. How do you get punished? You no longer have that position. You got to go find you another position. What we get taught is when a political representative don't do what we want them to do, we're supposed to argue with them on the internet. We're supposed to go back and forth. We're supposed to talk about it. We're supposed to do hour-long videos on them being the Uncle Tom and the Coon and the yada, yada, yada. We never get taught remove the person from their position. Just get them out of their position because they're no longer serving you in what you need to get done. That's what this particular group did. So what they did was they started a PAC, which is a political action committee. And they raised money to get new people in office that was going to represent the values that they wanted representing and wasn't going to try to backdoor them to get an education curriculum put in front of their children that they didn't agree with. Now, I'm going to show you, because we got transparency, the kind of monies that was being raised in this PAC, because we're going to talk about what we don't do and what we're not being taught to do by either political group. So when the Democrats go to black people, they don't teach you how to politically organize, how to form PACs, how to raise money to get the candidates in. When the conservatives tell black people, what they tell black people is that you shouldn't vote Democrat, you should vote Republican. But they also not going to teach you how to politically organize, how to form political action committees, how to put your bread together to get the candidates that you desire that's going to do what you want them to do. Why? Because now you're going to be a threat to them. So they're not going to teach you how to be in power against them. They're going to just tell you, well, if you're voting for this person, then go vote for this person. Right? And something that we talk about in Rules for Dictators is that, what I was about to say, most voters are what we call interchangeables. Most people that vote, especially on the national level, it don't matter whether you vote or not. Why? Because you have so little economic power, we can exchange your vote for another group of people. So what you're seeing is that, is what I try to get black people to understand. I don't want to sidetrack it, so I'm going to say this and we're going to get into the actual document. Black people are being replaced by Latinos in the Democratic Party. The narrative is that, well, black people should go vote for Republicans. Well, let me explain something to you. Since I've been alive, we've had Reagan in office 8 years. We had Bush Sr. in office 4 years. We had his son, the other Bush, he did 8 years. Then we had Trump do 4 years. Why do they need black people? What do they need black people for? So you got to understand is that this political system has figured out how to make the black vote interchangeable. What do I mean by that? It don't matter whether we get your vote or not. Your vote is interchangeable. I can exchange your vote for somebody else. Something that the sister Erica Williams talked about is that if you live in a city and you vote, the guy that owns more real estate, the guy that owns the most amount of real estate in the city, his vote is more important than y'all. Why? Because it's money backing his vote up. So if you live in a city, the people that own the most amount of real estate in your city, their vote is more important than your individual vote. Why? Because it's bread backing them up. So what we don't get taught how to do, and I'm going to show you this, is we get taught to vote for somebody that's presented to us. What we don't get taught is how to create our own candidate. I don't care what color the candidate is. I care if he do what I tell him to do. I don't care what color he is. He can be Asian. I don't care. He can be trans. The question is, are you going to do what I tell you to do? That's all I care about. I don't care what he represents. So whatever candidate that we got to create to get him in there to do what I need him to do, I'm cool with that. But I don't care whether they black, green, purple, trans. I don't care about none of that. My question is, are you going to do what I need you to do? I got certain things I need to go through. Are you going to do that? Yes, we cool. If not, I got to get you out of there, put somebody else in. But it takes money to do that because it takes money to create your own candidate. You do not have a candidate. All you do is vote for somebody that's been presented to you. Let me go to the screen, man, because I don't want to talk this into a political thing like that. Let me go ahead and go to the share screen because I want to show you this PAC and the monies that they raised. Here we go right here. So this is the SouthLake family's PAC, right? See, cash on hand, total contributions, 96 expenditures. This is from transparencyusa.org. See, people don't even know how to look at this kind of information. This stuff is on the internet. It's on the internet. Christy Henderson, right? 15,000. Arthur James, 10 grand. Darren Wynn, 10 grand. Brooke Pariza, 5,000. Linda Galbraith, 2 grand. 2 grand down. Goes all the way on down the line. Some people donated $10. Every dollar help. Every dollar help. You get enough people, everybody give $1, you win there. So then they show you what they spent the money on. Law group. Facebook ads. Guaranteed that was Facebook ads. This LLC, law group, political marketing international, probably some more Facebook ads. LLC, Bidwell Communications. These are probably radio spots or either TV spots. Make my newspaper. You can see all the payees. So you can look right here and understand how much money was raised, what they spending on. You get to see the expenditures. You get to see their raising because in the political space, all this has to be transition, has to be transparent. So that's what I want people to understand. So this is SouthLake Family's PAC. So the question is, how come we not being taught by these people that's quote unquote to two groups of people? The people that's telling you they social justice people, they're going to make sure we get justice from the injustice going on in the world. How come they're not teaching us how to organize like this, how to put our bread together so we can get our political candidate, not because they black, not because they a woman and it's black girl magic, not because of their sexual orientation, because they're going to do what we tell them to do. Because that's what these people did. When they saw that they had lost control or they believed they had lost control of their school board, their job was to raise money to get people in that's going to do exactly what we tell them to do. And they're not going to divert from that. So now then when we deal with the conservative group and they telling us, well, y'all need to stop voting Democrat. How come they're not telling us how to organize ourselves like this, how to put our money together to create our own candidates so we can get people in position to do what we want them to do? But they telling us to stop voting for this group of people, vote for this group of people. But you still not picking your candidate. I don't mean pick your candidate like you pick football teams. You got people that's in the political candidates. Like I like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You got people that like political candidates the way I like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They fans of political candidates. I'm not a fan of any politician. My question is, are you going to do what I tell you to do? If yes, we got an understanding. If no, I got to get rid of you because I need somebody that's going to do what I need them to do. I need more economic opportunity, this, that, and the third. So are you going to do what I tell you to do or not? If not, since we don't have no understanding, you got to go. I got to get somebody else in there. So this what people got to understand is that we're not being taught how to play the Game of Thrones. Once that this particular group thought that they was losing some of their power, their goal was to continue to consolidate even more of their power, and they put their money behind it. And let me tell you something else. They know and they got confidence, because one of the things that hurts economics is lack of trust. When I believe that I can't trust this other person, so let's say the brother Ray Gun 34, appreciate the $5. Let's say Ray Gun say, bro, we're going to start a PAC. We're going to get this happen over here. Right? I want a situation similar to what they got down there in Vegas, where you could just have you a spot, had a situation over there. People come in, do business in a spot, and you ain't got to worry about the police trying to lock you up like they got down there in Nevada. Right? I didn't mean to say Vegas. I meant to say Nevada. Right? Y'all know about the bunny rents. So we're going to get politicians that's going to get us that type of scenario. Right? I got to have trust that if we put our money behind Ray Gun going to do what he say he going to do. So one of the things that hurts us is that we have operators in this particular space that say we're going to raise money for this, and they never do it. What does that do? It erodes the trust. You cannot have economics without trust. So one thing about this political PAC is they know if we raise the money for this, the people that we giving this money to, they're going to do what we need them to do. So they don't worry about it. So they come through with 10 grand. They come through it with $5,000, $15,000, because they know I can trust these people. This is why I tell people we got to get these operators out of our space that have these particular funds and they raise money. And it's not that they're not successful. They don't even do what they say they're going to do. It becomes indefinite. With this scenario, you can't be raising money indefinitely. You got to raise the money and then start acting. So that's the problem. So now we're going to go into who this particular group is, because I want to show you, I'm going to always deal with the money side first, then we're going to deal with their language and their literature. I'm going to show you who these people say they are, right? Let me go ahead and share this screen. We got this right here. SouthLake Families. Okay, so this is their group. This is their website. So it's southlakefamilies.org. So let's go to About Us. So you talk about what they are, what they believe in. So SouthLake Families is unapologetically rooted in Judeo-Christian values. Now, what does that really mean? We welcome all that share our concerns and conservative values, right? And they believe that conservative principles have made SouthLake an extraordinary city to live and raise a family. We believe, SouthLake's tradition of excellence must be protected. We reject recent campaigns calling our tradition of excellence racist, right? So this is what they are. They in Judeo-Christian values. That's what they believe, right? That's what they believe. They got this right here. They allow you to read the CCP here, so they can understand what they're talking about. They said, what does the CCAP include? Mandatory social justice training. And we talked about that. CCAP, diversity and inclusion training for enrollment and graduation process. Right? They talk about the cost. The cost of this program is going to be $3 million over 10 years. They didn't want to pay that. They got Christian club audits and unintended microaggressions. They didn't like the definition of microaggressions. And then Black Lives Matter, which is a hot word for these people. Black Lives Matter week at CSID. Then they give you the plan. So this is what they're talking about. So they got this whole thing. What's the solution? They felt that the solution would be uniformity in the student code of conduct, which is I agree with. The problem is, how do you go about doing that, and what's the accountability? So we can say we're going to do it, but what's the system that's going to create that, and what's going to be the accountability? Now we go to critical race theory, because they got to slide that in. Critical race theory makes the race a prism in which proponents analyze all aspects of American life, categorizing individuals into groups of oppressors and victims. It's the philosophy that has affected everything from politics and education to the workplace and the military. So what they're doing is that they're backdooring this by connecting it to critical race theory, which is a hot button for these Anglo-Saxons right now, right? The two hot buttons for Anglo-Saxons right now is critical race theory and these pandemic issues. If you want to reach out to them on a political level, you tap one of those two issues, you got them. You understand me? So they also, besides a pack, they created a group. They organized, called themselves the SouthLake Families, and said, you know what? We got to figure out how we're going to put a stop to this. But what's underneath it is the bread. They're not doing none of this for free. And they understand it's going to take money to get these things to take place. Now they have the financial wherewithal. But one of the reasons why they have it is because they focus on it. They don't have it. They're not waiting for some billionaire guy that runs a hedge fund to come through and tap them with some money. They're not waiting for this ball player to come through and give them some money. The money's coming from them. Now they have the money. But the reason why they have the money is because they focused on the money. Right? So this is what I want people to understand. Now, this is what I want people to understand about what I'm trying to get you to understand. These people know how to build power. They know how to organize. They know how to keep their power. And when there's a threat to their power, what do they know how to do? See, what weak groups do is when they get attacked, they fall apart. When weak groups get attacked, everybody scatter. They start pointing the fingers. They start blaming each other. They scatter. What did this group do when they thought they was under attack? They all came together. That's the difference. And they figured out, what do we need to do as a group to expel this out of our group? They didn't jump on social media, even though you have some social media. They didn't do a whole lot of internet stuff, even though you have some. They came together. They put their money together. They put a plan together. And they implemented their plan to get these people out of their particular environment, because they don't want their kids being taught this. And they have a right to determine what their kids get taught. To me, they have not done anything wrong. Because what I'm going to show you this again. Let me show you this, what I'm talking about. Share screen. Here we go. I want to show you this. 15,000, 10,000, 10,000, 5,000, 2,000, 2,000, 1,000. You know what they're telling you? What are they telling you when you see those numbers? What are those numbers telling you? And telling other groups. What are those numbers communicating to you? When you understand what this political pack was based around, when you're looking at those donation numbers, what are they telling you? And what are they telling other groups? That's the question. Because a lot of us don't understand what we're communicating to people. What are those numbers telling you? What are they telling those other groups? Let me tell you what they're telling you. It's telling you that our children being raised the way we desire is worth the investment. They children being raised the way they desire is worth them putting that money up. And we got Negroes on the internet talking about paying $250 a month for child support. Right? They letting you know that my children being raised the way I want them to be raised is worth the investment. Right? It's worth it. So if I got to pay money to get this thing back on track to make sure my children get raised the one I want them to raise, we're going to do that. You understand me? So that's what we got to understand, is they're not only communicating that to each other, they're communicating. So now we know that SouthLake families is willing to do what it's going to take to make sure their children get raised the way they want them to get raised, and they'll put bread behind it. We all know that. Well, with other groups, you got to run behind them to do stuff for their kids. We having a PTA. I don't want to go. We doing this over here for the kids. I don't want to be involved in that. I used to coach football. Kids was walking to practice on their own, walking home on their own. Parents didn't care what they did. It wasn't that they didn't have the time. They had the time. They didn't care. Care nothing about them kids. The job of the kid is to stay out of the way of the parent. So you not communicating to the children that they are valuable, because you're not showing the kid that we willing to put things behind you and resources behind you to make sure you become the type of child that we want you to be. And it's not about the dollar amount. It's the fact they willing to put that up on the wood for their children. That's what they communicate. So when they say that their kids' life matter, I believe them, because they willing to put money where their mouth is. Not about the dollar amount. It's the fact that they willing to do that. And I guarantee you, when they put this PAC together, you ain't have to run behind them for that bread neither. They was coming at you for the money. They coming at you to give you the bread. You ain't got to run behind them for that. So these are the things that we not taught. We taught to stay in this inferior position. Maybe this time, this politician gonna finally do what we asked them to do. This politician got this plan, the lift every voice and sing plan. This politician got the platinum plan, but those are their plans, they not our plan. You understand me? SouthLake families got their own plan. They give their plan to the politician. They say, I need you to implement that plan. They don't let the politician come at them with their plan. So this is what we don't understand. But how come neither one of these political groups and they black Confederates that's supposed to represent these political groups are coming at us with this type of information? I'm not a member of neither one of these groups, right? So how come neither one of these particular political groups or these political ideologies are coming at us with this type of instruction of this how you need to do to put yourself in a position of political power? You just supposed to change who you voting for. And they get compensated to tell black people that. But they just entertainers. This is why I tell people to stop listening to these dudes. They good entertainers. But outside of that, what else they going to do for you? After they get done, because they don't have a plan to get you in a position of power because they're not being compensated by the power structure to teach you how to get in a position of power. Their job is to entertain you. That's their job, to entertain you politically, and you stay in the exact same place that you were supposed to be in. You feel me? Now, this is why I tell you all the time, I understand what this diversity council was trying to do, but this is what I try to get black people to understand. The way this country was constructed and set up, you're wasting your time trying to get Anglo-Saxons to understand racism. It's a waste of time. Why do I say that? Because it's their culture. I did a video on Facebook years ago about Jamestown and how it was actually established. This is their culture. So you're not going to get them to stop engaging in their culture because you feel offended about it. And I'm going to show you something, right, about why they really don't want history really taught. It's a reason when you start talking about the history of this country, they don't want that taught because they don't want to ever admit that they did anything wrong, because in their mind, everything we did got us in this position that we are today. So it can't be wrong. So they're never going to go back. So if you go to other parts of the world, they may have had situations. One of the things that they do is that they teach we was wrong about doing this. So like if you go to Germany, they very much have come to terms with what they did regarding Nazism, right? They very much come to terms with that. They don't try to hide that and embed that in their society. That, well, you know, this really didn't happen. It was really overstated, because the mistake the Nazis made is they essentially documented everything that they did. So the Nazis would go to a town in Poland and kill 15,000 people. And they would literally videotape them throwing all those people into a mass grave. So the Nazis, when they didn't win the war, they messed themselves up because they documented everything that they did in the war. So now they couldn't say we didn't do that. But one of the things that they do is they are very forthcoming about the fact that, yes, we actually was involved in that. I'm not saying there's no racism in Germany. What I'm saying is that they don't try to hide their past to racism, right? They don't try to do that. They come to terms with it and then they deal with it. In America, we can never come to terms with this stuff. So because they cannot admit that we was wrong in what we was doing. So that's why I tell black people, you're wasting your time thinking that an Anglo-Saxon person is racist against me, or they're discriminated against me. And if I just educate them on it, they're going to change their ways. Let me explain something to you. I don't believe it's my job to civilize the uncivilized. God has not put that on my heart. I'm not trying to have church with y'all. He has not put that on my heart. So I don't believe it's my job to civilize the uncivilized. That ain't my job. So I don't look to do that. So when I'm dealing with a bunch of people that I realize are uncivilized degenerates, it's not my job to try to show them where they're uncivilized at. That's where the Moors messed up. The Moors went into Spain and they thought they could civilize a European. That came back to bite them because they should have never did that. They should have just dominated Spain and continued to expand. They messed up because they thought they could civilize a European. That came back to bite them. We still trying to do that today. You cannot civilize the Anglo-Saxon. They are who they are. You got to deal with them on that level. But we've been made to think, and a lot of this is from liberals, well, if you just tell these people what they're doing wrong, they'll change their ways. No, they won't. And I'm going to show you this, right? And now what we're using is an old trick, but it's a very effective trick. Anytime you start talking about changing this European, they use this term Marxist, right? They use this term Marxist. Now, many people who just get involved in politics may think this is new, but in fact, it's very old. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So we're going to deal with that first. They now start calling this cultural Marxism. They're saying critical race theory is Marxism. Why do they use this term Marxism all the time? It's a way of othering you. And if they can other you, then they can justify attacking you. So what they first do is they other you, they dehumanize you. You're not a regular person. Then they do that. Now we can attack you. Now, we think that them using this term Marxist is new. They've been doing this. This is an old trick that they've done. And they do the trick over and over again because in their mind, being a Marxist is being the worst thing in the world. Now, they stopped for a little while and started calling people Muslims. But as soon as the Muslim thing was, they kind of came off of that, they went right back to calling people Marxists or socialist. So they said Obama was a socialist. That was the narrative that they said on Obama. Now, I want you to understand something. Obama raised more money when he ran for president than any person that ever ran for president in history of the United States. The second time he ran for president, he raised more money than what he raised the first time. You know where the majority of that money came from? Wall Street. So why would Wall Street, a community of people that's 100% about making as much money as possible, why would they support a socialist or a Marxist? Why would they support that kind of person when Marxism is about really destroying capitalism? Because it works. So the way in which you other Obama, and I'm not a fan of Obama, I'm not here to promote, I'm trying to get you to understand what these people do. The way in which you other Obama is you say he's a Marxist. And their audience is so degenerate, they so lowbrow, they'll never go do the research and understand that this man got literally hundreds of millions of dollars from Wall Street. And Wall Street's not going to support somebody that's going to destroy the system that they make money in. They would never do that because they love to make money. Right? JP Morgan said that it's the job of our trading desk to make $100 million a year. $100 million a day. So why would an organization that's tasked to make $100 million a day support a candidate that's going to take money from them? Don't even make any sense. But this is what they do. And I'm going to show you the history of this. This is why they don't teach history. And I'm not a historian, but I know history because I know how to read. And we're going to get into it. And I'm going to show you why you're wasting your time trying to educate and trying to civilize these people. You're wasting your time. I'm showing it to you. We're going to get right to it. This is why I don't do it. Let me show this. Here we go. We're going to go to Getty Images. So all credit to Getty Images. This is a billboard that was on the route to Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, taken by civil rights marchers. This was in the mid 60s. It says Martin Luther King at a communist trading school. This in the 60s. This in the 60s. This ain't nothing new. So now let me explain something to you. They now say MLK is the activist that we should all aspire to be just like. Don't they tell us that? You shouldn't be nothing like BLM. You should be like MLK. Don't they tell us that? Isn't that what these black conservatives, really black entertainment, political entertainers tell us? You should be nothing like Black Lives Matter. You should be like MLK. Ain't that what they tell us? The same MLK they was calling a communist on billboards. So you got to understand this is what these people do. So the way in which they're going to try to marginalize you is say that you a Marxist, you a communist. It's just a matter of time before they call me a Marxist. I'm a Marxist. It's just a matter of time before what I say and how they start to say, well, Dave is a Marxist. He's involved in a Marxist plot. People are just idiots, man. So that's what you got to understand. I'm going to show you something else. This is why they don't teach history. They don't want you to learn no history. Or you got to learn their history. And I'm going to tell you something. Here we go right here. I don't know if we're going to play this. Let me see. Can we play it? So on YouTube, let me see. Can we play this? This is 1964. I don't know if y'all can hear it.
Mrs. J.D. Milam, and I think this is the most ridiculous thing that has ever happened. The Negroes are just as free as we are. They have the same opportunity to work and to build their part of the town just the same as we have. I just don't understand it and don't approve of it. I'm going to stand up for my rights.
Jim Knight with WALB Television News. We're soliciting the views of Albany people on the Civil Rights Bill. Would you like to give us your views?
Well, I think if they remain peaceful, it would be a lot better than perhaps the violence that was concerned. Well, of course, being a Southerner, I'm not for it at all. I just don't know how it's going to turn out. I hope we don't have any trouble.
We're soliciting opinions on the Civil Rights Bill. Would you like to give us yours?
I'm sorry, but I don't think it's the time right now. I think they have equal rights, though.
Thank you very much. Would you like to express your views?
No, I don't think so.
How about you?
Nope.
What I'd have to say wouldn't be fit to go in there.
Thank you very much.
I don't like it. I think you're trying to put something on us we don't want.
I see.
We ought to have a national election on it rather than just letting 9 men tell us what we got to do.
And how about you?
I feel the same.
Fine, thank you very much.
I sure don't like it, that's for sure.
I see. Do you feel this will have any effect on your life directly?
I imagine it will.
Thank you very much.
We might have to next over.
Thank you.
So I want you to understand something. This was 1964, right? That's 1964. The man's in Albany asking them what do they feel about the 1964 Civil Rights Bill. And one of those women said, outside of both of them using the N-word twice, and don't have no problem with it, and they on camera talking like that. She said they got the same rights we got. So in 1964, this woman thought that black people had the same rights she had during Jim Crow South. During Jim Crow South, she's saying that black people got the exact same rights she got. You wasting your time trying to teach these people anything. You wasting your time, right? Either you're going to figure out how to play this black conservative political role and get some money from them because you're going to be their mouthpiece, or you're going to be a social justice warrior for some white liberals and get some money from them because you're going to be your mouthpiece, or you're going to figure out how to not deal with neither one of them and just go get you some money and worry about your family and your group. But you wasted your time thinking you're going to try to educate these particular people out of what they believe. This is in 1964. So let me ask you a question. In 1964, with overt racism, overt Jim Crow South, the Jim Crow laws were still in effect. These people in Albany, Georgia are saying that, you know what? This ain't even that big of a deal. It's not even that big of a deal. They got the same rights we got. So you got to realize that even then, they're saying the same thing they're saying right now today. So that's the question I always want to ask people is that if this stuff ain't going on today, when did it stop? Because it didn't stop just because you signed a particular legislation in action. This is why, if this is how people are socialized to think. Okay? Another reason why they don't want history. Because they want to create a social narrative about what happened in the past. The problem is they already told on themselves. So I'm from the South. For years, I grew up around people want to wave the Confederate flag. I don't care what you do. You want to wave the Confederate flag? Really, you waving the battle flag of the Army of Virginia, but you too uneducated to even know what you're doing. So you got somebody from Florida waving the battle flag of the Army of Virginia. You thinking you waving the Confederate flag, but you're really not. You're waving the flag of the Confederate Army of Virginia. But if that's what you want to do, do that. But they've created this narrative, and it's really happened during the Civil Rights Movement from the Daughters of the Confederacy, that the Civil War was not about slavery. Incorrect. And any educator that will have a class and allow children to repeat in class that the Civil War was not about slavery is irresponsible as an educator. And I've seen this on the internet. There's no way in the world I, as an educator, is going to allow children to sit in the class and say Civil War wasn't about slavery. Yes, it was. Why? Because I got documentation to prove it. This ain't he say, she say, and I'm going to show you the documentation. See, I read. That's the difference between me and a lot of people. I actually read. I come from a long line of readers. We read over here. And I teach everybody that learn trading from me, you got to read. You cannot sit back and hope somebody else going to give you the information. So this is from the Atlanta History Center, right? This is from the Atlanta History Center. You can also go to Mississippi and find this. You can also find this online, right? This is the Mississippi Declaration of Succession, right? 1861, with an appendix, published by the Order Convention, Jackson, Mississippi, right? And this has been highlighted already. So this is a declaration of the immediate causes which induce and justify the secession from the state of Mississippi from the federal union. Now, why did they have to declare that they were going to secede from the union? Because the Constitution is a contract. So in law, if I want out of the contract, I have to state why I want out of the contract and what's the reasons why I want out of the contract. So let's say me and Miss Erica Williams got a contract. I'm providing services to her business and I got a contract. I want out of the contract. What I don't want to do is deny her service. Why? Because she can sue me for that. So what I got to do now is file what are the reasons why I want out of the contract. Let's say we have a disagreement on how I'm supposed to perform the services. I need to state that in the contract. This is the reason why I want out. So we got to declare why we're seceding from the union, because the Constitution is a contract in law. That's what they don't teach you. Constitution is a contract. Your state constitution is a contract, right? The government don't have any power except what you give them. So we got the Declaration of Succession, right? Once we start the Declaration of Succession, in literally the second paragraph, it says our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world. Its labor supplies a product which constitutes by far the largest and most important portions of the commerce of the earth. These products are peculiar to the climate, verging on the tropical regions, and by imperious law of nature, none but the black race can bear exposure to the tropical sun. These products have become a necessity of the world. They're talking about cotton, and a blow at slavery is a blow at commerce and civilization. Next highlighted, there is no choice left to us but submission to the mandates of abolition or dissolution of the union, whose principles have been subverted to work at our ruin. We're going to keep going down. One of the reasons why they wanted to secede, it refuses the admission of new slave states into the union and seeks to extinguish it by confining it within present limits, denying its power of expansion. They wanted to expand slavery. Why? Because if I'm a plantation owner and I'm making a lot of money in the business of cotton or any kind of agriculture utilizing slave labor, like any business owner, I want to expand my business. I want to expand. Abolitionists was against that expansion. You had people in states like Utah and Kansas said you can't bring that up here. We don't even like black people like that, but y'all can't bring that up here, right? It has nullified the fugitive slave law in almost every free state in the union, and has broken the compact in which our fathers pledged their faith to maintain, which was what? To make sure that the southern states remain slave-holding states. It seeks not to elevate or support the slave, but to destroy its present condition without providing a better. Which they found is you can't just release slaves, right? You got to put them in a position to do better. But their attitude is that this is their natural position, right? So when somebody tells you that the Civil War was not about slavery, you got to realize they don't know what they're talking about, or they're lying to you because they don't know what they're talking about. And you can go to every southern state that seceded from the Union and a Declaration of Succession, the institution of slavery, and trying to protect that is going to be in that particular declaration. I know because I read them. So this is why they don't want history. So they can call it critical race theory. They can call it Marxism. But they don't want history because they don't want for people to actually expose what really took place in this country. And they're going to do anything they got to do to try to destroy this. Because what I told people this a long time ago, I said, you know what? My father was raised during Jim Crow. My father almost 80 years old. They're going to wait till all these people pass away and cannot contradict them. And then they're going to say this stuff never took place. That's what they're going to do. Now, you're going to have some documentaries on the internet. You're going to have some, some PBS documentaries, things of that nature. But they're going to wait till everybody that was involved in Jim Crow, like my father, my mother already passed away in 2005. They're going to wait till they all pass away, and they're going to whitewash Jim Crow. And they're going to say it really wasn't how it was. It really wasn't that bad, yada, yada, yada. Why? Because we want to try to get past this. These are the kind of people you're dealing with. So you're wasting your time trying to educate them and civilize them to what actually is going on. You're wasting your time. But what I want you to understand is that we have to understand how to move, right? Like the parents of SouthLake. They're not sitting around waiting for somebody to do something for them. They organize, they putting their money where their mouth is, they forming groups, they financing that group, the people they have over the group are doing what they need them to do, and they're going out here in the world and they're getting what they want. And people really got to understand that. We have all these people coming to us and telling us to do everything except organize, put our money together, and go get what we want in this world. We do everything but that. Why? Because then we become a competitive group. You cannot compete with the families of SouthLake if you're not as organized with them. And if you're not willing to put money behind what you want, and if you don't have people in position that's going to do what they need to do with the money. So we got any questions before we get up out of here? Because I don't want to make it too long. We've been on pretty much an hour. We got any questions before we get out of here? Right? This is the real Game of Thrones. This is what we're not being taught. PNB, get with 3 people that's trying to do something and y'all go for it. Don't worry about nobody else. Gregory Shaver says, am I in the group? Yes. Shavers, I keep telling you, I'm not talking to you personally. I don't come from being unorganized. But I had to change some of the people I dealt with because I may do a video on that, why I had to change it. So, appreciate it, Black Buddha. So my question is, I need you to expand. So when you ask these kind of questions, and I'm not talking about you personally, y'all ask these very open-ended questions. It's asking like, what do I think about fried chicken? Like, do you have a specific aspect of something do you want to know my opinion on? Because y'all ask these open-ended questions and I don't understand what the question actually is. And let me explain something to you. Everybody that's listening, you don't have to be part of this national thing. SouthLake Families is not a national thing. It's SouthLake. That's a small area in Dallas. But they organize in that area. So if you come in that area, it got to be how they want it to be. And they letting that be known. Now, what y'all doing in Oak Cliff, that's y'all business. They don't care nothing about that. Because that ain't got nothing to do with them. They got their own little area. So that's why this internet stuff where everybody in this national stuff, that don't necessarily work because power is localized and it builds up off of that. Power is not national, it builds down. That's not how power really works. So when you say, do I think AOS is a valid way of organizing? What do you mean by ADOS? What do you mean by that as a valid way of organizing? What do you mean by that? Appreciate it, Ray Gunn. All right, Miss Bellamy, do what you got to do. You got the intelligence to do it. Y'all just do it. And you can start with one plot. You ain't got to buy the whole city up. You can start with one plot. You just get you a block and run that block and expand. Because SouthLake didn't start like it is now. I guarantee if we actually do the research on SouthLake, it started as a real small area and just started to expand. They started to incorporate more and more, annex more and more land. That's how it works. They didn't start as no big area like they got right now. It take everything, like say small, everything big got a small beginning. I may not know any, so too blessed, it may mean that you may need to start one. So I don't know any because I'm not in your local area. So I want to really encourage you to start local and go national. So I don't know any of your local area, which means you may need to start one. Because I'm not into this national stuff. Right? I don't believe that is to our best benefit because every area is different. I'm from Florida. The way things move in New Orleans is different. So they got issues that I don't necessarily have and vice versa. So that's why I don't do this national stuff. So we got any questions before we get out of here, man? So I'm gonna get into this gym before the traffic get too bad. Appreciate it, Paula Clay. Appreciate it, $4.99. Everybody that came through with the donation, I appreciate it. All right, Job 16 chapters in every state. I feel you. Okay, so what is the goal to get them? How are they gonna get them? If they're advocating for them, what's the goal to actually go get them? Right? And is that national? Is it local? Because I've never heard of that in my area. So like I said, I'm not into none of this national stuff. Right? I come from a neighborhood. I'm not into none of this national stuff because I don't know what y'all doing on the other side of the country. So I don't have nothing to do with that. So Xanatos, I don't know how to pronounce your first name, so I apologize to you. Mr. Clutch says, what if you're coming from a predominantly black place and most of the people there are demonized black men who are productive are demonized black men, and most of the people there, they're demonized black men who are productive and intellectual. Okay, so let me repeat that question, Scott. I think I misread it. What if you come from a predominantly black place and most of the people there have demonized black men who are productive and intellectual? Okay, so Mr. Clutch, let me ask you, when you're talking about this situation, you telling me that the black men who are productive and intellectual, is there more than one? And two, does that person need to move? I'm not talking about you personally. Maybe that person need to move to another local area where you don't have that issue. Three, if you cannot, this is my personal opinion. I'm not trying to talk about you personally. If you cannot deal with black people, you ain't got a chance against Anglo-Saxons. If you think black folks is bad, you ain't seen nothing. Because it ain't a black group in the world has done what the Belgians did in the Congo. It ain't a black group in the world have done what the United States government did to the Native American. Not a black group in the world have done that. So if you cannot deal with black people, you ain't got a chance in the world against Anglo-Saxons. You ain't ready for it. And I'm not talking about you personally. I'm talking about anybody. So to me, I don't never have enough problem around the black people around me that stop me from doing anything. My problem was with other groups of people. I know how to deal with black people because I've been around them my whole life. I know what they're going to do before they even do it. Do I have issues sometimes? Yes, but they can't stop me from doing nothing. Why? Because they're not strong enough and they're not dangerous enough. These other people are really dangerous, like really dangerous. There's a story in Texas about a bunch of black veterans that were dissatisfied with how they were being treated. I believe this was after World War II. Might have been after World War I. They had an issue with the police. As a result, there was a riot. They just went in there and killed all of them. You don't have examples of black people doing that type of stuff in this country or even other parts of the world. So that may be the issue that you're dealing with. I'm not trying to diminish it, but I would tell you, see if you can find more than one person. But I would really tell y'all, man, no disrespect to anybody individually, you got to get your weight up. Because if you can't deal with the black people in your area, you go out and deal with these other groups, they're way more predatory. They're way more predatory. You don't have a black group on the internet talking about we made a mistake with this drone by killing, 8 or 9 civilians by mistake. There's no black group that can even do that. We don't have black groups that are doing some of the stuff that these other groups of people are doing on a world level. They don't even have that ability to do that. And I don't even think they would do it if they could. So I would tell you to try to figure out, one, how to find more than one person. Two, maybe move into another area where you can handle things. But three, try to really figure out how y'all can get y'all weight up, man, because most black groups are not any considerable threat compared to other groups of people out here who are very, very dangerous people. Very dangerous. We just got to do the research. These people are dangerous people. But not to diminish what you're saying, because it's not about that. So I understand where you're coming from. We got any more questions before I get up on out of here? But I grew up. If y'all knew how I came up, a lot of people talk about these people is cookies and cream to me, bro. They're not nobody to even be worried about. But I don't know a black group yet that has gone up in somebody's house, literally in their house under the color of law and killed them. I don't know a black group that's done that yet. not under the color of law. So that's why I don't understand, but everybody have different experiences. So I'm not going to diminish your experience. We got any questions before we get out of here? All right, so that looks to be it. Hope it was a good video for it, everybody. Appreciate the contributions. If you have any questions, reach out to me. Like I said, I primarily do videos based around finance, but it's going to be in one of the Laws of Game series that I'm giving out freely to the particular public. You can tap into the Patreon. That's going to be Patreon. Appreciate Miss Bella. On Patreon, I think Diamond_Dave, but it's Patreon Diamond Dave. It should be on there. Hit me up, and I'm gonna just keep encouraging y'all, man, to keep pushing, doing your thing. It's gonna be setbacks in life. Trying to get to where you want to go may not be easy, but if you continue to apply yourself consistently, you can get there. I don't always have great days. I have bad days also, but I just wake up the next day and I just keep going, right? So I want to really encourage you. If you got a goal, just keep applying yourself. Be consistent. You'll get to where you want to get. But we as people, especially our men, you have to learn how to operate against opposition. Grew up playing sports my whole life. I never had a person let me do what I want to do in sports. I had to figure out how to do what I need to do in opposition to what they was trying to do. That's why I love playing basketball, because it was me against another person. And they was trying to do what they was trying to do, and I was trying to do what I tried. I had to figure out how to get around them trying to do what they want to do and me do what I want to do. So if we can apply that kind of mentality to other things of life, we can figure out how to be successful. You got to learn how to exist against opposition. Nobody's going to just let you do what you want to do. You sometimes got to fight to get what you want, and you got to fight to keep it. This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. I'll talk to you later.